Welcome to another episode of Undressed with Matt Haycox, and today James Roffey is in the house. James and I were just talking a little bit before we started recording, and he has got a hell of a story, a hell of a journey. Involves anxiety, depression, infertility, anorexia, bulimia, and the story of how he suffered from all of these, came back not only to, fix himself and make himself a better man, but now use that experience to help others as well, help them on their journey with fitness, with mental health, and many other things too. So looking forward to digging deep on this. James, welcome to the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
How are you enjoying Dubai?
Oh, I'm in love. As I say, I came out here in November last year. It's my first time, and counting down the days to come back. Any excuse to come back now. So yeah.
No, it sucks everybody in, and I think particularly in the fitness space and the personal development, which obviously you're in, it's a great place for that too. Yeah. Look, obviously I've given a couple of cliff notes of your story and your journey, but set the scene. Let's take us back to the beginning. When did it start to go wrong for you, and what happened from there?
Early on, obviously, it was from the age of 7. It was kind of mapped out that I was going to be a professional footballer, and I'm sure there's probably loads of listeners already have that story of that one person that they know they were going to be a footballer, they were going to make it. And seemingly that was my life. Obviously, I followed in my dad's footsteps. My dad was a goalkeeper, semi-pro, and obviously I saw him play and wanted to emulate my dad. My dad's like my role model in life, in every aspect. And
was there a pressure and an expectation as well, or was it just that you genuinely enjoyed it?
I loved it, but I think my biggest pressure came from me. Obviously, my dad was never pushy, but he was very judgmental, because I think he knew the ability that I had. So if I fell below the standards that he thought I'm at, then obviously I would get a rollicking. But I don't think it was ever. He never pushed me to the point where I didn't want to do it. I think I lived and breathed football. I still do. It's still probably my biggest hobby. Obviously, this is like my passion now. But obviously, the football has been something that I've always done. So I started playing for the team that he played for, like a local team, and then got scouted by my town, then my county, and then I got picked up by Charlton Athletic, who obviously at the time were in the Championship or League One, whatever it was at the time. And obviously I just went for a trial, got signed at 7, and that was the next 10 years of my life. So every season they renewed the contract. At 13, my little claim to fame was obviously I trained at Bisham Abbey, at England's training ground. So got to play on a pitch next to David Beckham, Alan Shearer, Michael Owen. And despite my accent, I'm a big Liverpool fan. I was kind of the black sheep of the family. My whole family are Arsenal fans, and I wanted to be different. And it was like to see the people that you just aspire to be like playing football next year. It was like just crazy experience at such a young age. And also you've got coaches and your teammates are saying like, you're going to make it. And then fast forward to just before my 70th birthday, when you were going to sign a professional contract, it was, you're not good enough. That's it. It was put down to my height, despite the fact now I'm 6'4". I didn't start growing until I was about 18, as a late developer, which again, we'll come to that later on. There were reasons for that. And it was just a checklist of things. Is he tall enough? No, he's not good enough then. That's it. So it was 10 years of my time, and it was, thanks for time, go back to what you were doing before.
And was that the only route that you could have taken then? I mean, could you have gone and tried with some other clubs and tried different routes, or?
I think obviously, looking at it now, there's a lot of aftercare and there's a lot of feeder club systems in place. There wasn't for me. There was no you're not good enough here, but we have access to these clubs, or we can put you on this course of whatever. Nothing. It was literally go back to what you were doing. Which, when you're 17 and all you've known is training 4 days a week and football, so you're a match day on a weekend, go back to what you know. That's all I knew. And I just felt it was I had a very privileged upbringing. Never had any issues, any trauma, so to speak. And that was my first real trauma, and absolutely ruin me. Like I felt like I let my parents down.
What did your dad say? I mean, I know you said he gives you a bollocking when you don't come up to scratch. What did he say about this?
It wasn't meant to be. That's my dad's like motto in life was like, if you give your all and there's nothing more, you try and cover every angle and you don't get the outcome you want. It wasn't meant to be. But in my head, I thought that was just like a polite like tap on the back, like, oh, don't worry about it. But deep down, I thought that they just thought that I was a failure. And again, at 17, I just internalized it. I assumed it, therefore it was fact. I didn't speak about it. I didn't ask them, like, how do you feel? I took the burden on my shoulders, and I went back to school. Obviously, I was entering in my first year of A levels. Obviously, just done my GCSEs, and obviously again I was known as the guy that was going to make it. That was my identity at school. I was the popular kid that was the football guy, and then coming back and saying...
Was that a pressure to walk back into? I mean, were people...
Awful.
Taking the piss or supportive?
I don't think people took the piss. I think it was just like that. I just lost my worth. Like when you're at school, it's like if you're the good-looking guy, you're the popular guy. Like I was the football guy, and it's like to have that for like 6 or 7 years and then it be taken away. It's like I've almost felt like a bit of a fraud. Like the thing that made me wasn't there anymore. So who am I? I don't really have anything. So that was difficult. And then obviously I think like I went to a grammar school, but I was never academically gifted. My friends I couldn't understand how my friends could go out. As soon as they turned 16, they were out every weekend and like house parties and stuff. And yet when it comes to like revision, didn't revise and they'd get all A's. And it's just like, how? Like, how is that even possible? Because I had tutors, extra tuition, and I was still like scraping my grades. And obviously when it got to my A levels, I got a C, a D and 2 E's. And one of the E's was in business studies. And obviously when my dad owned his own security company, obviously like he's sold it now and semi-retired. My brother did business studies at uni. You know, it's like I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'll just do what my brother and my dad have done. So it's like I had to do business studies. And obviously getting an E at a grammar school was like unheard of. So I was like, what can I do can I repeat the year? Like, not with those grades. I was like, I have to do business studies. It's like, well, you can leave then. So I had to leave. In my head, I had to leave. I had to do business studies. So again, like less than 6 months later, from being the football guy, going to be a professional footballer, to then leaving school, leaving my friends, going to college, which was the drop in the academic level from going to a grammar school to college was vast. So I did like a 2-year diploma there to get enough UCAS points to go to uni. And I didn't really try, but I got like 90% for the 2 years. And it was just, that was, as a bit of a flex, it was all right. But in terms of the enjoyment factor, I didn't want to be there. I probably come across like a bit of a twat. Like I didn't want to be there. I shouldn't be there. I should have been at school. So therefore I was probably like the nerdy kid, did my work, went home. And then, but during college, I started in the September term, and then my mum's mum, so my nan, had sold a house in London to come and live with us. I think my granddad had died a few years previous, and she didn't want to be on her own. She didn't like what was happening in London with the amount of crime, and so she sold a house to come and live with us. And while the work was being, that we had like a separate annex built on the side of a house, and before that work was finished, she got diagnosed with cancer in January, and she passed away at the beginning of March. Obviously, when she was diagnosed, it was obviously terminal. It was everywhere. So they sent her home. She had like palliative care. So like Macmillan nurses came to the house, obviously just to keep her comfortable. But that rate of decline it wasn't even just like daily, it was like hourly. I'd go to college, I'd come back, and she'd be like in an even worse state. And I think when she died, that was the 3 things that happened in the space of just over a year that completely fucked my head up. I just couldn't deal with what was happening to me. Again, from someone that had a very I had no previous traumas to deal with, so it's not like I was easing into life. It was just within a year I'd gone from being the professional footballer to nothing, to being with my mates, all planning on going to uni together, to nothing, and then obviously my nan. Not again, I couldn't help her because the doctors couldn't help her in hindsight, but still, I seemingly took that on my shoulders as well. And when she died, obviously my mum then lost both her parents. And I remember at a funeral, my mum turning to me and like hugging me, like inconsolable, saying like, I don't have any parents. Like, what am I going to do? And it was just like, what the fuck can you say? There's nothing you can say. And again, I just took, like, it became a taboo subject talking about my nan. And then I just internalised everything, the football, the school, obviously the death of my nan. And I just punished myself. I think that was the easiest way I started to run. I'd never been a runner. And I just started to run and run and run. And with that competitive nature that obviously I had from football, I wanted to be the best runner that I could be. So like it started out just like anything, like running for half an hour, then an hour, and then that read to like 2 hours, 3 hours. And then it got to a point where I couldn't run anymore. And I don't know what clicked in my head, but I decided to cut back on what I was eating. I don't know why. There was...
This was a conscious decision. It was, I mean, I know nothing about anorexia and bulimia, but I guess I tend to get the impression that people think they're fat, or that they look fat even when they're not, and that's why they stop eating because they think, shit, I need to have less calories here. I mean, it was that kind of a thing. Or?
That came later. The body dysmorphia came later. I think at the time it was just self-sabotage. It was like I felt so I couldn't talk about my nan. So I couldn't vocalise how I felt or even ask my mum, because anytime you spoke about my nan, she cried. So it's like, listen, not talk about it. I don't want to upset her. Like, I didn't talk about, I still thought the football thing was me. I was a failure. I'd let everybody down. I was not clever enough to stay at school. And it was just it was just a blame game. Instead of, like you'd have someone that was an alcoholic, they'd go on a binge, or any type of binge, like a drug binge or a drink binge. Mine, to start with, was exercise. And then I did it for a few months, and I obviously got that runner's high, whatever you want to call it. And then that started to wane, and it was like, what else can I do to give myself that rush? And it was like, how far can I run? How little can I eat? That was that competition I had in my head. And obviously I just took that to the absolute extreme. For when, about a year after of doing that, that's when obviously I'd lost a hell of a lot of weight. And my parents took me to the doctors, and my parents had explained what was going on in my life, and that's when I was diagnosed with anorexia.
And so, forgive me, which is the one where you don't eat, and which is the one where you make yourself sick?
Anorexia is where you restrict and don't eat. Right. Bulimia is obviously where you would binge and then bring the food back up. So it got diagnosed, and it was just like, what the hell's that? Like, I had no idea. I think whereas now like mainstream, like media, like talk about it a lot more. Obviously back, we're talking like nearly 20 years ago now, 19 years ago. Like there was no programs about it. None of the soaps were talking about it. It wasn't in, like, celebrities weren't talking about it. And I do not know. It's not like I read it and gone, oh, that sounds interesting. It was just, I think, how I was wired and what I wanted to do to punish myself. That was my vice. Obviously, if I'd have been wired any differently, it could have been drink, it could have been drugs, it could have been anything. But the method was different. I think the results were the exact same. I was doing something to block out how I was feeling. That was my coping mechanism. And it wasn't long after it was diagnosed as anorexia that I changed, manifested itself into bulimia. So it was like, the reason for that is I was so hungry. I'd go to bed hungry, wake up hungry. And it was just, I just rebelled against that feeling of hunger by eating anything and everything that I wanted. But the moment I ate it, it was like shame, guilt, like you've lost, you haven't been able to curb your hunger pain, so you're a failure again, and you've got to bring it back up. And obviously that's where, like, I'd lost a lot of weight with the anorexia, but it's the bulimia that really, like, caused a lot of health issues. So obviously, like, with that, we're talking probably now like 18, coming on 19, and then that's where. So I had my eating disorder for 10 years.
I was going to say, yes, you had 8.5 years of bulimia.
Yeah.
And when we say 8.5 years, is this an everyday thing?
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have a bad day and a good day, but it's 7 days a week for 8.5 years.
There was
puking up.
Apart from maybe the last couple of years, when I would like win the day, for a good 7 years, it was all every day. And we were trying to work it out. Like it would have been at least like 50 times a day. I was making myself sick.
50 times
50 times a day, because I had this.
And are you eating as well?
No.
So you don't eat and you puke up.
Essentially, what I was doing was I became nocturnal. I would. Eating disorders, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, they are incredibly secretive. You do things behind closed doors. You don't like anybody to see you because, again, you're fixated by food. Every single thought in your head is food, because it's either you're hungry, you're thinking about food, you have cravings for food.
When you say they're secretive, though, do you think they're secretive? Because like my impression is normally when you look at someone who's anorexic or bulimic, you know they are, and they might think that they're being secretive about it, but whether or not they go and hide in the toilets or deny it, I mean, you know what they're.
Yeah, I think obviously the outcome, the result of what you do is inevitable. You can't hide that, but I think it also comes with the secretiveness of hiding food, like storing food in your bedroom, like whether you hide it because you don't want to eat it, or you hide it for later when you having that crave to binge. You've got food like somewhere, and it is literally, the habit is the same as an alcoholic. You hide drink around the house, or you would disguise it in different things. And obviously the way that I ended up, the routine that I become accustomed to was, I basically had anorexia during the day, so I wouldn't eat, and then I would wait for my parents to go to bed half 10 at night. And I would stay up from 10:30 till 6 o'clock in the morning, just binging on food. So I'd go out in the day, buy whatever food I was craving, leave it in the boot of my car, and I used to park my car below our living room window, open the window up, climb out the window, open my car, get all the food out, and then just sit in the lounge and just binge on food for 10 hours?
And what is the process that you spend 10 hours eating, enjoying that food, liking that taste?
I think it's the initial taste, and then that feeling of like your belly being full, because obviously
which you like that.
You
feeling.
liked it, but then as soon as you sit with it, guilt has to come out.
And then at that point, then literally like a few minutes after you finished your last bite and you've got a full belly, that's when you start puking.
Yeah, and and obviously it'd be like. You'd constantly make yourself sick until there was nothing else coming out of you. And obviously how my health deteriorated was I wouldn't know when to stop making myself sick. So I'd end up
puking out.
Yeah,
more
all
than
my
food.
yeah. And obviously that's where at 21 I'd started passing out. If I got up out of the chair too quick, or I got up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, if I got up too quick, bam, I'd wake up on the floor. I wouldn't know how long has passed.
What were you doing for work, or did you have friends and stuff at this time?
No, obviously like that I was signed off work. Is it employment support, ESA, whatever it was? I know it's changed a lot now. But yeah, I got signed off when it was diagnosed with anorexia. Obviously friends had already gone by then. Obviously at 18, obviously a lot of them went off to uni. So even prior to that, when it first started, obviously a lot of them were like, "Oh, are you coming out tonight? Are you coming out this week?" "No, mate. No, I'm busy. I've got plans." And then you just eventually ignore them, and then they eventually just stop asking you. So all my friends that I had at school, I lost just because of they went off living their lives.
And why were you ignoring them? Why didn't you want to go out with them? Because you didn't want to be put around food and situation, or you were depressed, you didn't want to see people?
I think it was probably a combination of both. I think there was shame in regards to where I was to what I was doing now. Completely, like, it's a completely shit life. So there was shame attached to that, but then there was also like the comfort in what I was doing. what I was doing was all consuming, and there was like a comfort to that. The way I described it is something understanding it since, especially with the bulimia, it's like Stockholm syndrome. Like it strips away, you're too ill to work, you're too ill to have any meaningful relationships. Like my parents are my rocks, but they fucking hated me. Like I've been the biggest strain on their marriage. They took like good cop, bad cop approach.
Only child?
No, I've got an older brother, but luckily, throughout all this, he's like 5 years older. So when this all happened, he was like in Sheffield at uni, and obviously then he stayed up at uni and stayed up in Sheffield and worked there and met his now wife and stuff. So luckily, he saw, like you said, the aftermath, saw how skinny I was and how ill I looked, but he wasn't involved in that routine. So that's a blessing. But yeah, like my mum was the bad cop. Like, only you can change. Like, I love you because you're my son, but I hate who you become. And then my dad was like, whatever help you need, let me know. Like, he was looking at remortgaging the house to send me to the Priory, which, again, that's how desperate he was, because obviously back like 15 to 20 years ago, there was no mental health support. The waiting list to go into an eating disorder unit was like 6 years, which obviously, had I not have been as ill as I was when I was admitted to hospital, 100% I would have died. There's no way I would have survived. It's almost like, I think you see it all now, it's like you have to be literally at death's door before anybody offers help.
So at what point were you admitted to hospital? How far in?
21. Obviously I passed out at home in the kitchen, and they had like a marble floor, so smacked my head. I just remember getting up, I remember falling, and then I remember waking up in hospital, and I had like potassium in one arm, phosphate in the other. So phosphate's like your electrolyte to kickstart.
They're giving you intravenous food, basically.
And obviously, so I was, I when I came to, obviously I had the doctors around me, and then there was this form that my parents had to sign, which was a do not resuscitate form. So I was 5.5 stone at 21. So I think we worked it's about 40 kg at 6'4". So in terms of circling the drain, probably I was obviously, it didn't bother me. Like I had the doctor saying to me, like, if you don't change, you are literally going to die. You're going to go into cardiac arrest. Your heart's going to stop, and we're not even going to try and revive you. I got my parents like almost like shaking me with like, what more do you want to be told? And it was just like I've never ever had a feeling of wanting to die. Never wanted to end it. But obviously, ultimately, what I was doing was like a really slow suicide. But I think it was more the fact that I'd become so used to this destructive cycle that it was my identity now. Like I said, going back to that Stockholm syndrome, if I get rid of the eating disorder, what have I got? Because I've got this shit life. So at least with an eating disorder, I'm James with the eating disorder. I get rid of it, I got nothing. So obviously after I spent like a week in hospital on these drips, and then I was never sectioned under the Mental Health Act. It was, you either go to the eating disorder unit on a voluntary basis or we'll section you. So it was like, don't really have a choice. So I went.
Had you put some weight on during this week in hospital? It doesn't fatten you up?
No. It was more the like phosphate and potassium. It was more just the nutrients and stuff that I needed. In terms of like, there was no real. Obviously, I was fed, but I don't really think that wasn't really making a bit of difference. But yeah, so I went into an eating disorder unit for 6 months. But because again, I was the only, throughout the whole 10 years, I was the only guy I ever interacted with, barring therapists. There was no other guys that had an eating disorder. So I couldn't be an inpatient, I had to be a day patient, so I had to be there at 7, leave at 7. So that was like my routine for 6 months. And it was then that they kind of reintroduced me to, I learned how to eat again at like 22, which it sounds so bizarre, but I think it's just obviously the nature of what I was doing for nearly 5 years. I wasn't eating anything. So I needed that control taken away. Control's massive with an eating disorder. So I was basically fed on a table like this, fed and then monitored. So I couldn't leave the table until I've eaten it. I couldn't leave the table for like an hour after eating it because of going to the toilet or whatever. And you literally just had it. It was almost like a scene out of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So had all these nurses watching you with like clipboards, writing things down. And you think like now with that, I don't know if the practices still work, but obviously again, it worked for me because that control was completely taken away. Eat that, you stay in there. You're not doing anything until we feel that you can't do anything off your own back. And then it was obviously doing therapy as well, with like psychotherapists trying to understand the root causes of everything, and that didn't go well for me. The therapists I had weren't the best. The first therapy session I ever had, I had a guy telling me, "Oh, this is a new one for me. I've never worked with a guy before. This is normally a woman's problem." Imagine that. You got a guy saying that to you, and it was obviously at the time it was like I never even entered my head about other guys. I just thought you don't really have that perspective on things. Like, who else has got it? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Like, you don't. So when they told me that, it was like, well, why me? Like, why am I the only guy this guy's known? Thinking about it, why am I the only guy here? Like,
what are the stats on bulimia and anorexia and like nowadays in terms of percentage of people have it or number of people that are affected?
It's still predominantly women, but the increase in men, especially like post lockdown, has been massive, especially with bulimia. Obviously, it's kind of classed now as a stress. It's almost like induced by stress. It's another way of. It's a negative coping mechanism. Obviously, some people do that as again, it all depends on how you're wired and what your background is and what your personality is. Some people will binge drink. Some people will take drugs. Some people will excessively exercise. Obviously, some people they get so worked up with stress that it's almost like they've got to get something out. And obviously, if they've just eaten and they feel that release, that's when that negative cycle can then start, because there's almost like there's a comfort to that. That's relieved my stress. It's like it hasn't. It's like a fake release of stress. You haven't relieved it. You just feel it because something's coming up. Therefore, that has to be the stress you're dealing with, and then you get into that cycle of self-sabotage, and that's how easy you can get into these.
And can people have like part-time bulimia, or is it either on or off? Do you know what I mean? Like you puke up 2 or 3 days a week, and you're not on the other days.
I think it's like I'm trying to make it easy for other people to understand. It's like you can be a full-on alcoholic, and you can be a functioning alcoholic. You can be a functioning bulimic. You can do. Obviously, if you remember John Prescott, the MP, obviously he suffered with it, and obviously people took the piss out of him because he was quite a big man, and obviously he did it, and obviously his reaction or his trigger was stress. So you can, and obviously it just depends on. I guess it depends on what areas you have in your life that can keep you focused in other ways. Like if you've got nothing, if you don't have a family, you don't have a partner, you don't have a job, you don't have any other things, in reality you're fucked, because it's just going to keep you in that cycle, because it's the only thing you've got. And obviously that's, from my own experience, if that's the only thing you've got, the last thing you're going to want to do is get rid of it, because it's the only thing that gives you any form of identity.
Hey, Matt Haycox here with a quick interruption just to say I hope you're liking the show, but please like, subscribe or comment. That's how we can bring you better guests. That's how we can make the show better each week. So please, that's all I ever ask of you. We never charge. We never ask anything else. Just please give us a few moments of your time. So at this point in the story, you're 21, 22, you're kind of 4 years into what was a 10-year problem. Mm-hmm. So presumably you relapsed again, did you?
Yeah, obviously I relapsed like numerous times. Obviously there was never any period of time when it was like I'd won the week. It would always be my. It was just my comfort. It was the one thing that I grew up with it. When most lads are out getting drunk, uni, holidays, I wouldn't say one night stands, but relationships. Like I didn't have any of that, and I still that life passed me by, and it was just I used to see people on Facebook. See Facebook at the time, it wasn't anything else, and it was just like to see them living their lives and going on holiday and like the lads that I was obviously at school with that have all met up and done a little reunion, and it's like I should have been there. Like I should have been part of that. I should have gone there. I should be at uni now. I should be with one or two of them. And again, it was just that was my constant crutch. The bulimia was my crutch to deal with all these feelings of being not living a life, not having any type of purpose. Obviously, a big thing like that with me now is it's understanding what your why is, what your purpose is, and I didn't have it. And if you don't have it, you'll continue doing the same shit you're doing every day because you're just going through life with blinkers on. There's no short, medium, long-term plan. It's just, this is my routine. Is it serving me? No. Is it the only thing I've got? Yeah. So I'll keep doing it. And obviously, that continued until I was probably about 25. 25 was when I'd been through various forms of therapy. I'd seen a hypnotist. I'd worked with other like psychotherapists, and then the biggest attribute to my recovery was working with a sports psychologist who used to work with like a football club and the England cricket team. And he was so different to anybody else I'd ever had a therapy session with. I think because of the sporting background, it was kind of like, oh, I've got that. I don't know you, but we've got a connection. If you like sport, I like sport. So I was far more inclined to listen to what he had to say. There wasn't really this prejudgment of, I'm not going to give myself to you because I don't like what you're about. I don't want you to change me. There was like a bit of respect that I had for what he did. And he was very much like, I don't give a shit that you've got an eating disorder. Like, do you want it? No. Do you know why it started? Pretty much, I can put my finger on it. Do you want to go back to when you were born? Was there like some childhood trauma that is undiagnosed? It's like, do you want to go back literally down the rabbit hole to find the exact pinpoint moment that your life went to shit? Not really. Do you want to get rid of it? Yeah. Let's work on getting rid of it then. And it was like such a different way of him looking at things. And obviously I worked with him for probably about 6 months, and it was just, there was nothing like miraculous with his teachings.
So I was going to say, tell me about the therapy. What kind of stuff did you do?
It literally was like reverse psychology. It was all about like, if you look at your mates that are all living their lives, like if you want the life that they want, do something about it. Like, you're probably too late to go to uni now. So what can you do? What would give you that thing of, what would give you that purpose that's going to occupy your time in a more productive way than what your eating disorder is? It's like work, going back to work, having that purpose, even if it's just an office 9 to 5 job. That's a long period of time that I'm not sitting at home thinking about, oh, what can I binge on tonight? What's my cravings tonight? And so through him and my dad, they got me a job. Again, without my dad, I wouldn't have got the job that I got. It was through someone in his network that was looking for a business development manager.
You're still living at home at this point as well, were you?
Yes, yeah. So I got a job as a business development manager for a double glazing company. So you know the rigmarole that you get with that. You work for a double glazing company, you just get told to, every phone call, go away, in polite terms. But obviously the business development side of it was trying to come up with more like commercial partnerships. So working with like more it's like B2B rather than the residential side of things. And so I started going to like networking events and like seeing all these people, and like at the time absolutely shit myself. Like trying to stand up in front of a room talking to people about something that I don't really know, but I've got to blag it to sound like I know what I'm doing. And I think that like chucking yourself in at the deep end, coming out of your comfort zone, it was like a sink or swim thing for me. And don't get me wrong, I'd come home at night and still have a little binge every now and then, but that was the turning point for me. That was when I felt like I was almost like a valued member of society. I came home, like I would then like do like lead sourcing for the following day to try and like, who can I contact? And it was like the longer I do work, the less time I have to think about food. And obviously it wasn't healthy, but it was far more healthier than the eating disorder. And obviously that's where over like a 18-month period, I started to win the weeks, win the month, and obviously then in turn win the year. And then I moved out, got my own place. I think I worked there for probably about another year, and then that's when I got the opportunity to move up to Sheffield for a job, funny enough, with my brother's company at the time, as a construction buyer, which is kind of like a bit like a business development manager, but a lot more like organisation involved, where you're speaking to people and making sure that certain materials arrive at certain points. And it was like double my salary, and obviously moving up from down south to up north, it's like half the living cost. It was like, fucking hell. Like, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer decision, but it's like, am I ready? Am I ready to do this on my own? Like, my brother's going to be there, but he hasn't got a clue what I was like. So I can't burden him with my shit. So, and it was that big, like that moment of like putting my big boy pants on, like that seminal moment of like, am I ready to do this? There was only one way to find out. So obviously took the job, and then I got made redundant after 6 months. So I'd moved like 300 miles up the country thinking it's going to be my new life, and then 6 months later it's like, yeah, there's not a job for you anymore, James. It's like, fuck, what do we do now? So I think I was 27 then. So I went on holiday to Sharm el Sheikh for I think like a couple of weeks to try and reevaluate my life. And while I was there, my dad's like, just come home. Like, come home, like we'll pay your rent for what you need to pay up in Sheffield, just come home. I was like, no, I'll there's no point wasting money. I'll see what I can do in 6 months. So I got another job, and then I met a woman, like the first person that had ever shown me any attention in 10 years. And I latched onto that. It was like, why? What's your game? Like, I didn't really understand why someone's wanting to want to see me and seemingly like me and whatever. And obviously, I think she was the first girl that I ever loved. And we were together for about 18 months, and then just thought that that was going to be my little piece of the pie. And she ended things via WhatsApp. One day going to work, telling me that she didn't love me anymore and that she wanted me to move out, and I didn't get closure. So I got my own closure, decided what the own closure was, and that was that I don't look like a man. So I'd have been 27. I was 9.5 stone. When I first walked into the gym, that's when I weighed myself. And I told the guy my story, and he was like, if you want to change and you want to bet yourself, if you give yourself to me and train and eat what I tell you to eat, you'll change your life. You'll change yourself. And it's like, right. So I literally gave myself to him.
But I was going to say, you're light at 9.5 stone.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't still have the eating disorder at this point?
No, that was the one thing, like I have no, obviously the way it ended was a bit brutal in terms of like not really understanding the closure, but I think doing like it's probably my first ever bit of like self-development or self-reflection on a situation. And it was like understanding that, Christ, the time that I spent with her, it's changed my outlook on having an eating disorder. There's no need for it, because I had a job, I thought I had a family, and I had a purpose. My purpose was to provide for my family. So there was no need for any of this unnecessary routine. And obviously I think when I was with her, so I was with her for like 18 months, and I didn't make myself sick in the whole 18 months that we were together. And I think so mentally I'd recovered. I think, mentally I could say I recovered. Physically, obviously, clearly I hadn't. And that was the deep dive that I did. That was my take home thing for that. I need to become a man. And so I started going to the gym, and then within 18 months I'd put on like 5.5 stone. So I went from 9.5 to just over 15. And obviously that's when I tracked my journey on Instagram. And that's where I gained obviously the followers, and that was a real like ego boost for the whole like 10 years of not having anybody say anything to you, like having it as a kid that you're going to be this footballer, and then it's taken away, and then you spend this time of like not interacting with anyone, and then suddenly getting like, wow mate, like you look amazing, like you like train me and all this. And it was just like, you probably go through, most PTs have probably got people have really crappy views of them, that they're egotistical, arrogant, love themselves. And I definitely went through that stage. I think getting that validation off strangers, like I feel that I needed it. I think it helped with my with my recovery. I think to get that validation off. In hindsight, these people offered like no real value to my life, but they were supporting me. They were sharing what I was doing, and they were a big. That was a big help to me to get that self-confidence in myself and that value. And obviously that's whereby my new purpose was I could do this. I could do this as a job. Like, I love what it's done to me and what I've learnt about myself. And I don't think I actually knew what self-development was. I lived, breathed and ate the gym. And it was like, so when I wasn't at the gym, I was listening to podcasts about the gym. And obviously a lot of that entwines with like the development stuff and obviously your mindset. And it was like, I like this. This is a bit of me. I could get into this. So like from like 18 months into the gym, like I'd physically like changed myself where I actually looked healthy. I looked like I had a bit of presence about me. And obviously that's when it coincided with the mindset stuff. Again, like listening to early on, it was like obviously David Goggins, was like listening to him, and it was like at the start of it, I was listening to it, and he's got this guy like running or seemingly chatting shit, but it's like when you actually listen to what he's saying, it's actually proper profound. It's like there's a lot of stuff I go, I can relate to that. And it was obviously listening to what he was saying and trying to apply that to my life. And it was obviously the never going back. Like, I've changed now, I can never go back. And that's what probably still drives me like today. Like, I never ever want to be seen as a failure. Like, failure and rejection are like things that I don't even want to have in my mind. I don't even want to have them in my vocabulary. I think it's just, and I think that kind of attitude has kept me constantly progressing away from the eating disorder side of things and trying to initially just become a PT to help people physically better themselves. And obviously I became a PT in February 2019, and then it wasn't until like after lockdown that I changed and kind of focused on the mental health side of things. Initially, I didn't really speak a lot about my eating disorder. I think it was kind of, whether it was, I felt like a bit of a like imposter. I think it was probably the like imposter syndrome in regards to who am I to tell people to better their mindset when I fucked around for 10 years. But then it wasn't until it was just like, yeah, but you did change. You have bettered yourself. Like, what the story that you've got will have value to not everybody, but some people. Some people will be going through the same things as you, or parents or friends or colleagues in work will notice someone that's probably struggling with their food and how they see themselves. It's like they will resonate with what you're about and what you do. And what
would you say is the single biggest thing that has kept you on the straight and narrow then, that feeling of purpose?
To me, the gym is, again, everybody's wired differently, but for me, the gym is like my safety net. If I'm having a crap day, if I'm dealing with crap, go to gym, and by the time you come out of the gym, you've done your session, like chucking weight around, that big problem isn't a big problem anymore.
But how have you found the difference on that? Because when you were younger, your kind of escape was running.
Yeah.
But then that running that started as an escape became a problem. Then, from half an hour to an hour to running into bulimia. How do you strike that balance or that difference, if you like, that going to the gym is just getting rid of your stress and making yourself feel better, and that the gym doesn't become a problem?
I think it's because obviously the other areas of my life are in balance. I think obviously the running coincided with me finishing school, obviously finishing college, and not really having anything else as my purpose.
And I was going to say, I'm not trying to force you back to saying yes to the having the why, but I guess just trying to follow it through for other people's purposes. You're saying that your life's in balance now, but in balance because you've got that why, because you've got that.
Yeah, obviously, obviously what I'm doing with my work, there's so many elements to it in regards to, obviously there's like the training people like online. There's obviously the new side of what I'm trying to do with the corporate side of things, getting into businesses. So there's never, I could sit around and do nothing, but there's always something to do. Whereas obviously before there was literally nothing to do. So I've always got a reason to be busy. And I think that boredom was the biggest factor for me with the eating disorder. If I had nothing to do, that's when I couldn't sit on my own in a room with like 5 minutes later I'd be like legs would be going, like be tapping myself, because it would just be the angel and the devil on my shoulder, just like you got the devil going, got loads of time, like easily have a binge now, and there wouldn't be anything stopping me. Whereas obviously like I don't have that because I've got other things to occupy my mind.
And I guess everybody's problems manifest in their own different ways, and obviously yours ended up with the eating disorders. Do you think, as someone coaching people through mental health issues now, do you think that this solution, if you like, this why, this purpose, this busyness, ultimately applies to anyone's version of those problem manifestations, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's any kind of self-sabotage? This is what's missing in people's lives, which ends up causing that self-sabotage.
I think that's it. And I think obviously like the people that follow me on my socials or whatever, obviously they're going to have an inherent interest in sport, exercise, fitness. And I don't claim to tell. There's a lot of people that I train that don't go to the gym. It could just be that it could be rugby, it could be swimming, it could be whatever. There's some people that haven't done any form of exercise for 15, 20 years, and just getting them out of the house that's their gym. So it's not about people like look at me or the things that I put up. Mine is lifting, is weightlifting, not bodybuilding, but weightlifting. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly what I do. You don't, because otherwise you're not me. If you train like me, you won't look like me. And obviously that's a key thing. But it's making sure that you have something in your life that will keep you active. And I think you will know, obviously being like a successful entrepreneur, it takes a lot of time, and it's very hard to teach someone that, because there are a lot of factors involved with starting your own business. You can come into something at just the right time and it could fucking fly. It could also be that you've got to spend 10, 20 years grinding every day, and eventually you'll get your opportunity. When you're in the gym or when you're exercising, it's all you. Like the person that started your before pictures and the person after, the improvement that they make, it's solely them. It's not anybody else. There's no other factors involved. It's solely based on the amount of work that you put in. And I think that's the building block for them to go, if I can apply that to myself physically, and I can see within 6 months I've improved tenfold, what if I applied that to work? What if I applied that to that business idea that I've always had? And I think like that it's the quickest thing that you can do to reap the rewards. And I think that to me, that's the exercise is that foundation. It's that initial thing that they can go, if I spend 3 to 6 months making this my sole mission to improve myself, that's the foundation where they go, shit, if I did that with work, or I did that with this business idea, or I did that with my family, or I did that with my friends, how much could my life improve in a year if I've got gym or exercise, but like building my business, building that side hustle, improving relationships with my partner. And I think that the exercise is the start of that, and I think that's whereby it's one of the key. Well, I've got 4 key pillars. Obviously, mindset, mental health is the first one, and then training, nutrition, and then the work-life balance. Those are my 4 pillars.
How do you describe work-life balance? What does that mean to you?
Again, to me it's very individual, because no two persons' schedules are the same. But it's about making sure that you almost have designated time across your schedule, like booked out to do things like with your family, and that whether that be, again, it may be that it's just on a weekend. What
if you don't want to see the family? and I say that not facetiously, but like I think because normally when I hear people talk about work-life balance, it's it's their view of work-life balance, and it's somebody else telling you to live the life the way that they want to. Oh, you're working too much, or you're not going on enough holidays, or you're doing this, you're doing the other, and yes, I think ultimately for some people, they get under pressure, they get stuck in that rut. It is whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think for other people, their balance just looks completely different.
Yep.
Like a lot of people say to me, if my mum, she says, you work too hard, you do too much. It's Saturday. Why are you not doing this? I don't want to. Obviously, I've got a new baby. I like spending the family time I like to spend, but I've got my limits to it.
Sure.
Other than that, I always kind of say in jest, but not in jest. My only real interests are working and shagging, and I want to go to work, and then I want to have a shag, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But I think so many people kind of get like forced into into a balance that actually is not what they should be doing.
Yeah, no, I get that, and obviously the one thing with me is it's very much like it's individualized. Obviously, every the consultation call that we'll have, and obviously when they do sign up with me, I will try and get as much information about them as possible, because it's not. Yeah, my idea of balance will be completely different to yours. It would be different to anybody else that you ask. It's obviously about what.
Are you happy?
Yes, exactly that. Do you think that there is room for improvement in your current schedule that would, if you did X, would make you happier? Yes. Okay. How can we do that? What is your current schedule? What are we doing? What could you implement, or what could you currently remove that will give you, like you said, they may not want to spend it with their family. They may want to do it with their hobby. Golf, whatever it could be. It is so individualized, but it's just about having the best, as much detail about that person as possible, and then trying to implement things into their life that are going to help them just feel better. That it's not, obviously they say all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but I completely get what you say, because it's a lot easier to find balance if you have a 9 to 5. If you are someone that is building your own little empire, you can't really have days off. Those days off can come when you are 5 years down the line and it's self-sufficient and it's self-serving. Again, that's everyone's interpretation of balance, isn't it? My life will be balanced when I've hit X. That may take me 10 years. So for 10 years, I'm going to be balls deep in work. And obviously it depends on the people around you. Are they going to be supporting that? And if they're with you, they'll just be on that journey with you, because when it does reach that point, you're going to have this level of, you could be comfortable for the rest of your life then. So it's 10 years of hard graft to give you the remaining 30, 40 years of your life to spend it however you want. That's, in reality, you're not balanced, but you are
following the plan that suits you.
Exactly. So
do you tend to only work, or not necessarily only work, but do you find that most of the clients that come to you, they're not just coming for PT, they're coming for that whole mental health exercise package?
It's definitely changed over the last probably close to a year. There's a lot more of obviously the check-ins that I do. They're kind of bi-weekly. So week 1 and 3 will be training, nutrition, and obviously weeks 3 and 4 will be solely your mental health, or a check-in about your lifestyle, how you're feeling within yourself, how work's going. It's not a therapy session, but it kind of is. I'm not a qualified therapist. Obviously, me, it's just about applying my skill set to their lives, and it's almost they don't know me. I'm not someone that's going to sit there judging them. If anyone that works with me knows my story, and they know that I would be the least judgmental person, otherwise I'd probably be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I'm sitting there going, well, you shouldn't do that. They'd be I've literally done that. I've got the t-shirt in pretty much everything. One of the things, the reason why I started what I do, and the things that I mentioned on in the corporate world doing my resilience talks, is it's essentially, this was my life, don't do what I did. That's kind of everything that I built is literally just, don't fuck up your life like I did. So I'll try and stop you as best as I can, and I'll try and implement things that I know that you are interested in into your life to make you feel more fulfilled. Otherwise, you're opening your world up to a whole load of crap. So that's kind of my little mission.
And tell me, as someone who's suffered for many years, and then and then come out the other side. And so having not been a sufferer myself, maybe the analogies don't work as well together. But I don't know how suffering from bulimia, for example, compares to an alcoholic or a drug addict. But I've got quite a few mates, and we all know a lot of people who've had drink problems, had drug problems, and then kind of gone sober. Mm-hmm. But I often look at some of these people and think, you were almost better off before you went, before you went sober. And yes, you needed to stop all, the quantity of the booze and the gear you were doing. But I kind of think you were better off trying to find a middle ground. Now, I know why the people don't find this middle ground, because they're the kind of addictive personalities that can't. But I had dinner, 6 or 7 months ago now with a mate of mine who he'd come out to Dubai, and he was a guy who literally he just go disappearing for weekends, and then he's that guy that goes out on a Thursday night, comes back on a Tuesday, his missus is kicking him out of the house, and he's into booze and gear and brass, and that's all he wants to do. And he came out here, he said, let's go for some dinner. I said, where do you want to go? He said, I don't drink anymore, so let's go wherever. We just went for a shisha and a fruit juice, and having a chat and a catch up. But the whole time I'm looking at him, and his feet are going, his hands are going, he's looking around, and talking about things. It's like, all I can think about is his booze or his gear. Oh God, I just love to go out and get on it and get with the brass again. And they're thinking it's on the one hand, it's good you're not doing it, but you also look so lost,
on edge,
so lost on edge, and such a mess that it's almost like you need a bit of bad in your life to try and level you out. And I'm not explaining myself well. I'm sure you understand.
No,
what I'm saying
I 100% get what you mean. But I think in regards to like your friend, obviously I don't know the personal life, but it seems like they haven't been able to make that transition from. Again, with me, it was kind of, and what I try and do with my clients is like you can never stop a habit. You can replace it. So you try and replace a bad with a good. It takes a long time, and there's quite a long transition period where you have your little relapses, and you learn, and you try and find out what that trigger was, and then you implement something else, and eventually, like we said, the good days, you win the day, the week, the month. It may be that they haven't got that new positive habit dialed in, and obviously
And is that why, forgive the interruption, is that why so many people, let's say, go from almost like one extreme to the other, that because personality-wise, they have to have something to go all in on. So they were all in on the booze and the gear, and they have genuinely quit it, and now they've taken up running, for example, and they're running fucking marathons every day because there's just no middle ground. They've just got to be.
Yeah, it's transference. That's what you're transferring from basically one addiction to another, but you're trying to make that addiction more healthier to your life than the current one you've got. And
is there a way to effectively try and overcome addiction, as opposed to trying? Because obviously, yes, it's better to be a runner than to be a sniffer.
Yeah, but still,
But doing anything to an extreme, has its downfalls.
I think with that, it depends on how you're wired, and I think with that respect, I think actually looking at the psychology behind how you're wired, that would obviously be like a therapist. That would be something that would be like psychological, because again, it could be that they have got untapped trauma from a child, or something that's happened in their life that has made them how they are, that shaped them to the person that they've become, and they may not even know it. They may have just gone through life kind of like with the blinkers on, and they're just going from one thing to another, and obviously they've picked up this addiction, and obviously that addictive personality. Like I have it. I 100% have an addictive personality, and I think that's whereby I've never smoked, I've never taken drugs, because I probably am far more aware of myself probably in the last 5 or 6 years. But still, my motto, and I know loads of people say that I'm boring, but you can't miss what you don't know. If you've never done anything, people can tell you, oh, it's fucking amazing. It's like, yeah, you tell me it's amazing, but then I see you the following day, and I see you 3 days later where you're still hanging out your ass.
That's it. I mean, boring's a matter of perception, isn't it?
Exactly that.
And someone who's getting on it all the time will tell the person who's not getting on it that they're boring. Yeah. I like a bit of wine. I'm certainly not into the drugs and whatever. And again, I don't judge, don't really care, but I look at that life. I think to me, you're boring because you've got nothing else to do, or the only way you can really enjoy yourself is by smashing the booze, smashing the gear, and that's and talking shit that you can't even remember what you've been talking about the next day. But I think it's boredom is very much a matter of perception, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I say that's the thing. It's just like everyone I work with, they're just everybody is unique. Everyone has a different story. Everybody's wired in a completely different way, and it's just about, I guess, depending on it depends on where you're at. Are you still living in self-denial? Do you still think you actually have a problem, or are you so used to it that everybody else is the problem and you're just sitting there with your head up your ass, not actually admitting the things that you're doing are your vices that aren't really serving you in the long run? And obviously there's to me, that it sounds, I always bring it up, there's levels to everything. You've got like the 5 stages of grief, isn't it? Like the anger, the denial, the acceptance, and it's kind of the same if you have an addiction. It's like, what level is that person at? Are they still in full denial? I'm fine. Like I may drink too much sometimes, but I can rein it back in. It's like, we've never seen you rein it back in. You're always, and again, they're in the complete and utter denial stage, and it may well be that they have to, and it sounds horrible to say, but some of the people that work with me, it's like your desire to change must be greater than your desire to stay the same. And sometimes that decision is made for them due to a health scare. And then it's like, shit, I actually need to pull my finger out now. And it's just, but then some people don't get that second chance, and they'll end up just having a heart attack or whatever, doing something silly while they're drunk, and they don't get a chance to change their life because it's been taken away from them. I think it depends on where they're at on their own self-acceptance journey. And I think it may well be that obviously the fitness industry is it's hit and miss depending on who you follow. There's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of bullshit that gets spread around, and obviously for people that are decent trying to spread the message, you kind of get bungled into like that murky water. But I think like personal development and stuff is definitely improving. There's far more people talking about it, and you just think hopefully some point someone's going to be flicking through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and they're going to have this like moment of, fuck, that's me. Like I need to do something. And I think something that you put up was yesterday or this morning about the 1%. That is literally one of my mottos. It's like you don't need to make the massive change. You don't need to go from 0 to 100 straight away, because you're going to fuck it off in about a week, because it's going to be too much too soon for your brain to comprehend. Mm-hmm. So if you can make the small changes, but in the fitness industry that's not sexy, because everyone wants a 6-pack in 3 days. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. Like, you've been in this state in your life. Literally, the only reason why people have drink problems is that deep down they're so fucking unhappy, and it's about something. I don't know what that root cause is unless you sit and talk to someone, but it's understanding what that is. And it's like, if you've been unhappy for 20 years and then you just started on this journey of recovery, improvement, it's going to take years. It is going to take years. And it's just like, people don't really have that stickability, because they see that person got in shape in 60 days. So if I haven't changed in 60 days, fuck it, I'll try something else. And it's just like, I just wish people could just park that bullshit and understand that like results take a long time. Like, was it 10? My eating disorder was for 10 years, and I'm now 9 years into my recovery. So I've almost had it. It's literally coming up to the point now where I haven't had it for as long as I had it. And like, people say to me, like, when they're just like, wow, you can lift so much, you're this, you're that. It's like, yeah, it's taken fucking ages. It's taken 9 years. It's taken 9 years of like working out 4 or 5 times a week. Like, you don't build what I've been able to build, like mentally, physically, emotionally, in 6 months. It takes a long time. It's like that's why I try and when you have these like client check-ins and these client consultations, like I try and manage the expectation. It's like, you do know that this is going to take a long period of time, because I don't want you to come in 3 months' time and go, you're shit. You've not done it. I've not changed anything. It's like, you've You may not have changed like physically yet because we're working on the mental side of things. We're slowly changing your outlook on things. We're changing those habits into positive ones. And obviously once we've got that nailed down, then we can step foot into the realm of exercising. And it's like that you do things in small chunks that they can slowly incorporate into their life. And then when they look back in like a year's time, it's like, fucking hell have I got here? But it goes against everything that people have known on Instagram. And it's very hard to try and rewire people. They've become so indoctrinated into they want it now. And it's like, you're changing your life. Like, why you want to rush it? Like, I know you want to get better as soon as, but you have to do it in the right way. Like, unless you win the lottery, you're not going to become a millionaire overnight.
Do you find that people who reach out to you have a real impatience with things?
100%. And then that's the amount of times you end up speaking with someone, you jump on a call and it's like, well, I've spoken to this guy and he's promised me that he can get me, if I pay him X amount, he can get me in this shape in 4 months. I'll be like, okay. Well, you're not going to come? No, I don't need to. Like, yes, you may have a bigger chest or bigger biceps in 4 months, but you're not going to fucking change anything up there. If you're solely focusing on the physical, you're not going to change the mental. And it's like, it's just that the slow incremental changes. That's when it's like the tortoise and the hare analogy. That's what I was trying to think of. It's like you'd have someone just absolutely running off, not really knowing where they're going, but stupidly fast. Whereas the tortoise is slow, methodical. It's not sexy, but they'll be better off in the long run. And obviously that's me. That's kind of what I do. And obviously that's whereby, like, I don't like shout and I'm not like loud and like grab your attention and stuff, which is probably to my detriment. But then it's not me. Like I'd be living a lie. This like I am how I am, and I'm confident in what I do. I just know that I need to manage expectations, especially when it comes to people's mental health. You can't be.
It's horses for courses as well. You know, in that, you know, whoever you kind of want to learn from, whoever you look up to, so much of the information out there is the same. Mm-hmm. It's just, you know, do you like the delivery of the person who you're getting it from? And yeah, you know, some people want someone shouting at you in your face. Some people want someone who's calm. Someone wants an American, or someone in English, a man, a woman, or whatever. So, and, you know, there's a place for everybody, and you know, I'm sure you find in yours well.
Yeah.
Well, listen, James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I mean, I guess that's a nice, that's an opportune moment to ask you to give yourself a little shout out for people who've been listening to this, and you know, I'm sure there's many guys out there who can relate to what you're saying. People who, like you say, haven't had the confidence to speak up yet. So if they want to find you, how do they get you, and how can they work with you?
The best way would be obviously on Instagram. Obviously, the handle is James the Mental Health PT. And I've recently launched my new website, which is mentalresiliency.co.uk. So obviously that's got everything on there about what I do. So those are the two. I was going to say that almost sounds a marketing disaster of asking people how to spell resiliency. Oh God, yeah, yeah. Just Google it. I'm sure it'll come up. So yeah.
You want mentalhealthpt.com?
Yeah. True. It's too expensive. That I'd already looked. Yeah. But as I say, I appreciate the time. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks a lot for being here, buddy. It's great to hear your story, and great to hear, you know, obviously not just how you've overcome it, but everything you're doing for other people too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Stripping Off with Matt Haycox. I hope you've enjoyed watching this week's episode, but please remember to like and hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the loop for future episodes. Have you got any burning questions? Have you got any killer ideas? Or slide into my DMs on social at Stripping Off with Matt Haycox, or simply comment below. And I'll see you again next time.